Hi, I'm Mikeman. I picked up this game, Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlords, several days ago, and I could not stop playing ever since. The game is in early access, which I usually try to avoid, but this time I gave in, and I'm happy I did. The early access thing though is the main reason that made me make this video. There are two main aspects linked to that. It influenced my gameplay and most likely yours if you're gonna pick it up as well. First, the game is not finished. Some quests do not work. Even the main one is in dire need of a polish. The core gameplay is amazing, and hopefully will stay that way, but the RPG part will likely be changed, as some perks need fixing and even skills with great potential are currently utterly annoying smithing. Maybe because of this, there is also little information out there in the internet. That's the second aspect. The little things you can find sometimes are controversial, like how caravan works, for example, or my favorite, how to recruit your best companion. Not because people are just wrong, but at the time this recording the developers are dropping a patch every week, changing things considerably, and the stuff that was right yesterday could be different today. Most likely this video will be outdated soon as well, but until then, let me give you 5 things I would have liked to know when I started this game. First is choosing your culture. There are 6 cultures in the game right now and they all have different bonuses. As it is now, the starting place is the same regardless of the culture you choose. It's in the middle of the map, surrounded by the Empire factions. Personally, I hope they will implement different starting places in a final version for immersion purposes and such. But other than role-playing, the reason to choose one culture over the other is the bonus they provide. The Aserai are traders who provide cheaper caravan and less trade penalty. The less trade penalty, it's a nice bonus to have early on before acquiring capital to buy your first shop, but later there are far more lucrative ways of making money. Plus, trade does not scale very well and is limited to the number of goods that a city can have. Caravans are not really available early game, and late game they get attacked and destroyed by other nations and bandits. You can take certain precautions like choosing a more stable area, but the war is very dynamic in Bannerlords and they will eventually get destroyed. At least they are cheaper to rebuild if you choose the Aserai. If the caravan management would be easier, maybe it would be a viable choice. But considering you have to manually go and pick up your caravan leader, wherever he or she may have ended after losing your goods to the enemy, then go to a more calm area and start a new one. The lost time does not worth the trouble for me, especially in the late game, when conquering castles and defeating armies is like 10 times more profitable. So they are really a middle game thing. And you are going to try the caravans anyhow, but I don't think it's worth choosing your culture over. The Crusades provide extra speed bonuses for horsemen on campaign map. Speed is important, but if you play with a lot of horsemen in your party, the party is already the fastest. So if this bonus doesn't get reworked, people will not choose it very often. Bethanians provide the same type of bonuses, but in the forest. Slowing to a crawl in the forest is annoying, but not enough to choose this culture, I think. Empire people are good in engineering, but I found out there are very few situations where a faster completion of a town project or a siege engine would have a different impact on my gameplay. It's linked with the same issue that the engineering skill has in game, basically. One can argue that a longer siege would give more opportunity to the enemy to send an army your way, but the amount of time that 20% bonuses from the Empire culture would have saved the day after hundreds of battles I had is like 2. There is this thing with faster ballista building, but I will discuss this later. Overall, it's not worth in my opinion. Sturgeons have better speed on the snow. Out of all 3 speed bonuses, this might be the best one, as Bannerlord has season, and during the winter snow covers half of the map. Still situational though, and having a smaller horseman party will always be the better choice if you want to move fast. Lastly, we have the Vlandians, and with their faster troop upgrade, they are an obvious good choice, as this bonus will be useful throughout the entire game. I do not know if the nation themselves also have these bonuses, but that would explain why the Vlandian kingdom is by far the strongest in the game right now. Second tip is about character creation. I'm not gonna tell you how to make your banner rolls, but currently some skills are more useful than others. It's a link with the whole early access situation and subject to change, but let me give you a short rundown of what it works and what it doesn't, at least for me. For vigor, you can go with your preferred weapon. Most likely you will level them up all a bit during your gameplay. But many people, including me, ultimately will end up with more points in the polearm, as is the weapon of choice for big battles with the greatest reach. Keep in mind also that there is a limited number of two-handers in the game right now compared with other weapons. Among the control skills, archery is the king. You will use it for sure. There are not many crossbow in the game right now, but ironically plenty of bolts. Crossbow needs some love from the developers. I can see some throwing build, especially if you PvP a lot, but archery has too many advantages over this in PvE. As endurance skills, riding is arguably better than athletics. There are some high athletics, light armor builds that do well, but with a fast, maneuverable horse, you're virtually untouchable, and you will be on the horse when the big battle begins. You still need athletics for castle sieging or tournament fights, so don't neglect it completely. Smithing seems broken to me right now. It has a good concept and an interesting manufacturing process involving parts, but it works with a stamina system. And the only way to recover it after you smelt a couple of hammers is to actually wait in the town and let the day pass by. With most of the quests being time sensitive and the world literally changing around you with cities being win or loss, it doesn't seem like a good mechanic to just stay in the town and wait for Smithy's stamina to recover. Other people on the internet might recommend this as a good revenue method as the parts you smelt have a bigger value than the initial materials, but they don't tell you that you can only do this a couple of times until you have to waste time again. Try it for yourself and see, but don't put points in your first playthrough. Scouting is very useful, but very hard to level right now, so you better take a companion with a high scouting skill and you're covered, as it's mainly a party skill. Tactics, on the other hand, it actually struggles to find his place in the game right now, in my opinion. Roguery will be leveled anyways as you sell your prisoners, but I don't recommend spending points in there, as it mainly improves village riding, and that was not very lucrative for me. Also, it has the big disadvantages of lowering your reputation with the villages you ride, until you'll not be able to recruit anything in there. I found charm to be very useful later on when you start convincing people to join your kingdom, and it's easy to raise it by giving any lord you meet some gold coins. Leadership is one of those skills that will naturally grow once you start forming armies and conquering cities. Trade, as I previously mentioned, does not seem to scale very well later in the game. It has some perks that will help, but the game doesn't seem to encourage building a financial empire. Steward is good, put some points in it. It will grow by itself as well when you keep your army happy. Medicine, however, not so much. It's one of those skills potentially useful on the map that is raised by waiting in a city. But waiting in the city also heals you up anyway. Plus, the numbers doesn't seem attractive to me. With a skill of 100 that is acquired by waiting a lot, you speed up your recovery in the field with only 10%. Skip it in the first time. I did not find engineering useful. As the game is right now, I cannot imagine a playthrough where this would make a difference. There are some people that use ballista for demolishing cities to avoid palisade standoff. You will know it when you see it, what I'm talking about. That takes a long time, and your army loses morale and eats all the food. Engineer might help a bit there, but the real downtime is after you build your ballista and you wait for them to take the wall down. It looks to me that it's one of those mechanics that need to be tweaked in order to be viable. Leveling is done by following the advice of the tooltip. And the speed you're doing it, it's a sum of your attribute points that you get every 4 levels and your focus points. For example, scouting, it's advanced by spotting tracks and hideouts and traveling to difficult terrain. And like I mentioned before, it's a slow process, and it's even slower for me as I didn't invest points in it, so I exceed my learning limit. But all these things you will discover yourself easily. What the game doesn't tell you, it actually leads me to my next step, and it's about perks, and some of them don't work. There is a list of them on Reddit, and it keeps on growing as people test more, then shortening as developers fix some of them. I've been looking to get the mount archer that would allow me to use my big bow while mounted, but this doesn't work for me. It's a known issue and it will be fixed hopefully. The funny thing, you can get this to two trees, once to the archery tree and then to the riding tree, but at the different levels. I don't know why. This brings me to the greater problem. Some perks are useful, and depending on your playstyle, it's worth investing in the relevant skill, but some not so much, yet accessible only later on. It could be maybe again the early access syndrome. For example, if taking the hard to reach 200 level skill in roguery will have a positive impact on your gameplay, you're doing something wrong. Third tip, it's about gear. You can have 3 quivers equipped. I wish I knew this when looters were chasing me because I'm running out of arrows. You can always use the trick to get out of the battle and get back in by retreating and the arrows refresh, but it doesn't really viable for a big siege battle. Having more quivers always a win. And it's the same for the other thrown weapons. Suddenly, javelins become more attractive. Armor weight only matters while you're on foot. When you're on a horse, you can put your biggest, heaviest armor and will not affect your experience too much. The swings may become slightly slower, but you will not notice, and your bow will still fire at the same speed. Glaives are listed as pole arms, but they have swing damage, making them literally longer, weaker two-handed swords. Spears only have pierce damage. My horse it's only tier 3. That's because I'm looking for the highest maneuverability, and this particular horse has a 78. He's fast enough for me. I never had been need for higher speed than this, but turning fast is always gonna be a must. The fifth tip is about quest. Not all of them are created equal. Some are trivials. Look, I won. And you can just put some herd in your inventory and move it to the next city, which sometimes can actually take seconds. And it has a very healthy payoff. And some other quests like Family Feud, you have to fight some people that are trying to kill your friend and you're alone, and at the time where you're strong enough to actually do it, you probably don't care about it anymore. Even the main quest is currently broken. Istiana's plan should keep on growing, but nothing should happen at the end. At least this is what the internet tells me. At least I cleared the empire. There is more to be improved here, from missing tooltips to quirky mechanics. I'm looking at new prosperity to bugs like misleading location of the companion. But for some reason, I cannot stop playing this. Hearing the hooves of like 250 archers behind me
Follow me!
still gives me goosebumps.
Charge!
I know I may have sounded negative before, but I did it with love. I'm not planning to pursue a career here, but there is so much potential that deserves the efforts to make my first video on the topic. And when I'm talking potential, I'm not talking kid that got the kid potential that one day may become an astronaut, but a brilliant young charismatic person with a PhD in rocket science and the Air Force background potential. So try the game. Every day gets better and the help from the community increases as well. You probably don't regret it. I did not.